Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Sawcruhteez Streamz, and I am your host, Sawcruhteez, coming at you live today for the second day in a row, keeping our fingers crossed that the stream stays healthy throughout. So we'll be keeping my eye on the live chat, keeping an eye on the other screen just to make sure that everything's not freezing up on me or lagging unbearably like it was in the past. So thank you guys all for bearing with me, and hopefully it will be smooth sailing from here, but I'll still be kind of holding my breath a little bit. Of course, I get a call that I am actually needing to take right after I go live. Son of a gun. Okay, so what I am going to do is just answer this, and I really apologize, guys. Sorry. Hey, Thrasher. I am here in like 30 minutes. Are you going to be sooner? Okay. How much sooner? Okay. Yep, they're right there on the coffee table. Thanks, bud. So sorry about that, everyone. Couldn't have been worse timing. My car died today and is just in a parking lot, and I've got somebody going to take a look at what in the heck is going on. So I really apologize. That couldn't have been any worse timing. So all good. Ha 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 in the chat. Thank you guys very much. Hopefully I will be able to edit that out post recording, but thank you guys for bearing with me. That was a call that I had to take. So everything being said, let's not waste any more time. Go ahead and jump into some charts. We are seeing some pretty crucial price action here recently, and it will be a good time to go ahead and take a look at some charts. This is the only about 30 to 40 minutes that I have available, so thank you guys for your patience there. First thing that I am wanting to take a look at is the RSI as a potential leading indicator for bounding closely for a little while now, as price has come down to retest this bullish trend line from the symmetrical triangle. I have been watching for the RSI to break down this boundary as a leading indicator for what may be to come. And finally, we are seeing exactly that. Not only did we break down this boundary on the RSI, we resisted it on a throwback. Broke down here, resisted on a throwback right here, and has turned back down. Very important action that we're seeing. The title of this episode is The Calm Before the Storm, and that's exactly what I think we are experiencing right now. Markets have a uncanny ability to lull the market participants to sleep before making a big move. It's uncanny how often you will get lulled to sleep at the exact worst time. So that is something that I try to pay attention to myself in terms of when I start kind of losing interest because we've been in this range for so long. That tells me it's actually the time to be the most interested and to pay the closest attention due to how I have experienced that when I'm feeling that way, big moves tend to follow. And therefore, I think that it is very important not to allow yourself to get lulled to sleep in that same manner. And when I am feeling that way, I will definitely start with some higher time frame charts, and then we'll also be very, very willing to zoom in to see if maybe some of the lower time frames are starting. We have wicked below this line, but we have never closed a 4-hour candle below this line right here. Okay, we've just every time we've gotten down here, wick below, rally off. Wick below, rally a little bit, try, come down, wick below, and rally off. Here, we wick below. This candle here was something, definitely paying close attention to see. We're coming down off of this trend line, coming down to retest this boundary, wick below, tries to bounce, wick below, kind of trying to bounce, but we are seeing that the RSI is showing that the relative strength from the buyers is waning. At least that is how I definitely interpret this, and that is confirmed on the RSI reading by it throwing back and resisting below 50. So if you're above 50 on the RSI, that's indicates a bull market, indicates bulls are in control. If you're below 50 on the RSI, it's time to watch out from the bearish perspective. So not only did we break down this bull trend line, we also resisted a throwback right here and resisted 50 right here. I mean, we resisted below 50. So that is painting a very important picture to me on the RSI. Now what I'm watching for is a 4-hour close below this trend line. It looks to me like it's coming, and it might come soon, but every time it's looked that way in the past, we have reacted to the upside. So the reason why I do think it looks like this breakdown is coming here soon is because these wick belows did not lead to any sort of reaction, at least as of yet. Hasn't even led to a retest of the top of this boundary. It just led to a lower high, which potentially we've just been seeing head and shoulders upon head and shoulders upon head and shoulder, kind of getting another one, starting all the way back out here, head, shoulder, zooming in, head, shoulder, zooming in, head, shoulder. None of these have confirmed, and it's been the same neckline for every single one. This trend line is the neckline for basically all of these head and shoulders. Basically every head and shoulders that we're looking at has the same trend line. So you can be, fairly have some sort of confidence that we're not the only ones seeing this pattern, that if they're popping up time and time again, there's probably a lot of people viewing that, and there's probably a lot of people viewing, even if they're not viewing this as a confirmation of a head and shoulders, they're still viewing this as a pretty clear trend line. And a lot of people like to talk shit on trend lines, and I just really don't understand. Look at a chart like this and tell me trend lines don't work. I mean, every time price is reversed, it's been from a trend line, and these trend lines have been incredibly resilient. I don't know how you look at action like this and say that trend lines are bullshit. Doesn't make sense to me, but to each their own. So here, what I would be looking for, as you guys have come to know, would be Bill Williams fractal. We've got the most important part is forming right now. The most important part are the 3 candles in the middle of the pattern with the high, the lower high, and then the lower high. Once that happens, it's pretty common that you will get that fractal to follow. And if that happens, if we get a fractal down this close to this trend line, that would be a strong indicator to me that the resistance is coming down faster than support is coming up, and it would also be a really interesting area to set a stop loss if we did break down this trend line. That would be a very, very, very tight stop loss. I would probably move it up a little bit, but still, if we do get a fractal and we do break down this trend line, then that I would expect to hold. Maybe not on a freak wicking basis, but on a closing basis, I would. Okay, so let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit, take a look at the chat. Okay. And it looks like everything's going good, so let's go ahead and move forward. Okay, so what I'm wanting to take a look at is the 15-minute chart. Like I said, I'll start, with my normal time frames, but then when I'm expecting a big move to happen relatively soon, then I definitely want to look for clues on lower time frames. And this is the one issue that I have with my new streaming, is that I can't get the full screen. I'm only using like a quarter of my screen to put this all together, so sometimes I can't get into all these indicators, but can't complain too much. So what I was looking at yesterday is I saw 10,200 is a very good place to potentially sell. I saw this after ending the stream, or else I would have been more than happy to share. But here is what I'm looking at, so that potentially you guys will be able to pick up on something like this in the future, or maybe you'll be happy that you missed out on it if price just shoots the upside from here. But what I was looking at was this trend line here. It was basically like a channel kind of that was developing. So we have something like that, where we have this pretty significant channel that is developing shortly after a death cross with the 50 and 200 EMAs. Look, we fall down, pull up and into this death cross. Beautiful selling opportunity if you trade this time frame. I don't, but I was paying attention to that. And then when we sold off down here around 10,000, I noticed that we were coming to the bottom of this channel, and I was thinking that that would potentially be a good spot for a bounce. And if that was to happen, I was looking right up around here, 10,200. I mean, in hindsight, it's, just whatever. But this did definitely work out. So far, so good. We've got this channel holding strong, and then we've got the moving averages rolling over and starting to spread out and starting to trend bearish. And that's why I love moving averages with trend lines, is kind of like what you see right here. You guys know that I like to sell EMA retests after recent crosses. So if we maybe shorted here, maybe looking to add on the first retest of the 200 EMA, and when that doesn't hold as resistance, having confluence from a trend line waiting right above is something that I really, really like to see, because it's like, if I'm wrong and this doesn't hold as resistance, well, I've still got this as sort of a backup plan. So that's why I really like seeing moving averages and trend lines line up, because just how I think about moving averages, that they identify the trend and they should move in the angle of the trend based on how the velocity at which we are gaining or losing value. The moving averages should represent that by moving along with the trend line, and the trend line should give you a more clear, best fit line of where this thing really is finding support or resistance. Specifically, when you get a parallel channel, it does a very, very good job of showing exact areas of support and resistance. So based on this, would be expecting from here 99.24. And that is in line with the horizontal. So that does definitely make sense to me. But if we do break down there, then all bets are off in terms of bouncing to the top, back to the top of this channel. I wouldn't expect that. At most, I would probably expect just a bounce back to the 10,000 test. Okay. And why I say that is because if we pull back to the bottom of this channel, like it looks like we will, then we will be breaking down the trend line on the higher time frame chart. So let's just get another chart pulled up here. And go to the 4 hour. Get those out of here. Get this back up. And okay. So what we're looking at, like 99.24. Is that right? Let me just double check here. 99.24. If we were to pull back to 99.24, maybe if it did it really, really quick, quick enough to where it just wicked down here and then closed back above this trend line, that would be different, but I just wouldn't be expecting that, because notice how, what do trend lines do? They are the best fit for higher highs and higher lows, or vice versa. So right here, we've got higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. And this trend line is the best fit line for those higher lows. If we go down to 99.24, that's a lower low from here. This needs to be the higher low. If we go down to 99.24, potentially we could kind of double bottom off of here, but that ruins the trend line as far as I'm concerned. We needed to continue, we still have the chance. We need to continue making higher lows off of this trend line for this trend line to stay intact. If we break down this low of this candle right here, which is at 10,019 on Bitstamp, if we break down this low, then I would think this trend line is broken. As sure, it could happen where we break down, we come down, and then almost instantly reverse to the upside. But I wouldn't expect that to happen. I expect these long wicks to occur as long as they're higher lows. See, notice how even here, it still stayed higher than this low right here. So if this is unable to stay higher than this low right here, I would not be expecting much more than a throwback to the 10,000 area to kind of make people think that every time we fall below 10,000, it's been a good buying opportunity. So if we go down to, here and then just bounce from 99.20 up to 10,000, it's gonna be a lot of people thinking, "Ooh, okay, here's the time to buy," and they're gonna hop right in. But I think that this would be where support or resistance really moves down due to that trend line that has been holding up price for a while now. If we break that and take out that local low, then I think a lot of people are going to be ready to sell 10,000, kind of like I was looking at 10,200. There's another reason why I had 10,200 targeted. It wasn't just this EMAs and the channel. It was also the fib that we were looking at. Let's see, how do we have that drawn? I think like that. So this is getting awful messy, but what we see is that 10,200 was support for a while. Right here, 10,200 was support on this pullback at the 0.382 level. And now, let's see here. That was 10,288, excuse me. I was looking at 10,175 to 10,200. I'm not sure if I maybe adjusted how I was drawing that fib, but I can definitely point out that there was clearly, right here, it's support, 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 resistance, 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 resistance. So I don't know if that's a fib or not. I can't remember off the top of my head. I thought it was, but as it stands, that 10,200 was a very, very interesting spot to sell once it broke down. And 10,000, every time it's broken down, it hasn't turned into resistance up until this point. But I would expect that to change due to that trend line. If we break down that trend line, then I think people are going to be looking at a lot of resistance in the 10,000, a lot of what was support in the 10,000 area that will be turning into resistance, kind of like 10,200 there. So let's just go ahead and pull up. Let's see if we can draw a line at 10,000 right there about. So we do see that every time, at least since here, that we've fallen below 10,000, we've gotten higher lows. We haven't gotten as deep into the four figures. Higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, and never did it really act as resistance on a throwback. The only time that happened was right here, and absolutely there was an argument to be made that thing was ready to go lower. Didn't happen. So now every time we've fallen below, we've just risen right back through without any sort of resistance. This area here I would start to draw in as a box like that. And that should definitely be support. Okay. What? I just turned it back to red. Are you kidding me? All right, screw it. Okay, so here is where I would expect, where there has been a lot of support. If we break down 98, then that should absolutely turn into resistance. If we come down to test, if we break down these lows, come down to test here, a lot of people I think will still be buying, but I think more people are going to be moving down as resistance. That's just my opinion. That's how I'm seeing these charts right now. And there's, like I said, this is a situation where I think it's the calm before the storm, and the storm could be in either direction. So I don't want to be married to which direction I think the storm is brewing. I want to be paying very close attention when it seems like the markets are trying to lull me asleep. I want to do my best analysis to determine where I think it's going to go, and make sure that my stop losses and my stop losses are in place so that my risk is protected. These are all the things that we should be thinking about in terms of, if I'm short right now, where's our stop loss going to be? You have seen that my stop loss is the 50 and 200 EMA moving average crossover. Is there a point where I would want to front run that? Potentially. If we break through this to the upside, then I am potentially going to be wanting to front run almost. I really don't like that, because if we do break to the upside, what I would expect for the most part is this. So it breaks through, and then it pulls back and into the EMAs that are still spread out in a bearish manner. That would be very much what I would expect, such that if we do break through the top of that, I would probably be holding on to my position and expecting a pullback, because these EMAs are bearish and spread out, and I do not like buying when price is above bearish moving averages. That is a sell signal for me. So therefore, I would be prepared mentally if this does break to the upside. I've got a plan. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's important to have a plan regardless of what you think is going to happen or how likely you think that is to occur. Let's go ahead and throw on the SARs. We'll have to blow this up for a second. Okay. Here's definitely a great confirmation for if you are looking at action. If we're pulling back, we're testing this trend line, maybe we're falling below it, but we've still got a ways until close. It could be a good idea to use the parabolic SARs as confirmation. If this SAR gets broken, then that could confirm that the trend line will follow, especially with the RSI leading the way. That hasn't necessarily worked. Let's see, like right here was a wick that came off the trend line and also broke the SAR, but didn't break the trend line. So definitely it can happen where this gets broken, but there's no follow through, but anything can happen. So for me, I'm going to be definitely paying attention to this SAR breakthrough. Notice how this wick came right down to the SAR, found support. And now if we break down a SAR and we're creating a new local low, well, that's just added kind of confidence to my position. Let's see what else we've got to look at. Just want to throw up the daily. I don't think really anything has changed there. SAR is still moving nicely, so definitely watch for a daily close below this area right in here, We've got lower highs, flat support, and no daily has been able to close below 10,025 for quite some time. The last time we got a close below there was back almost a month ago. So definitely pay attention to that. We are coming up on a monthly close a few days away. So potentially that's something that I will definitely be keeping in mind when I'm thinking that the markets are lulling me to sleep and it's time to pay very, very close attention. I want to be aware of major events coming up. Like, do we have futures expiring? Do we have a monthly candle close? Do we have a quarterly candle close? All these things are something I want to be thinking of because potentially the market will continue its sideways action and continue to lull participants to sleep until that event occurs. So the monthly close would be the longest I would expect this to continue to screw around between 10,000 and 10,500. But I don't necessarily think it has to wait until then. It's just something that I will keep in mind, that if I'm kind of getting a little frustrated that no move is coming over the next couple days, I'll just keep in mind that we've got something coming up. No big deal. We'll wait for that monthly close, see what happens. Do notice this 50 EMA is very much starting to act as strong resistance. Candles have wicked up to it. Only had one wick above, every single close below. So that is something to pay attention to. I would want to just check a shorter EMA to see the crossover. I'd expect a bearish crossover, and we got it right here. That is a nice pull up and into this cross. So now we are starting to roll over on some higher time frames. The simple moving average has also rolled over. This is the 50 simple moving average right here. Notice how it's also rolling over and starting to turn bearish, starting to act as resistance. So that's really what we want to see, is step by step these things happening. We've got the price resisting the 50 EMA. We've got the 9 EMA making a bearish cross with the 50 EMA. We've got the 50 simple moving average rolling over very nicely after a strong run up. This is what you want to see. I mean, perfect is this kind of sine wave action. It's like that, that sine wave where it starts bearish, turns bullish, rolls over bearish. That's what you want to see, and that's where I'll use a simple moving average to determine that trend. The exponentials move, they're too finicky. Like for example, right here, you've got the exponential turning back bullish throughout this action, whereas the simple moving average is starting to roll over nicely. You won't have near as many of these little head fakes on the simple moving average. Okay, don't think there's anything else on Bitcoin. Appreciate you guys chiming in the chat. Let's see here. Yep, see a comment that Murad sounds confident the bottom is in. I mean, I'm very confident the bottom is in. Murad's confident that we're going to continue from here. He thinks that, I guess, the local bottom is in terms of that we're not going lower than here, and that there's a lot of room to the upside. And I shouldn't put words in his mouth. I don't know if he doesn't think we'll go any lower than here, but he has been very, very bullish recently, thinking that this consolidation is going to break to the upside and that this is a buying opportunity, as I understand it. So he is definitely on the other side of the fence than me, and he is somebody I respect very much, but I'm going to trust my tools. So I know that sometimes he's going to be right, sometimes I'm going to be wrong, but I can't be the guy who's like, oh my gosh, Tone Vays just posted a chart that's bullish and I'm short. I got to get out of my position. No, you can't be that guy. You've got to trust. You got to stick to your guns. You got to trust your tools. And regardless of what anybody else, no matter how much you respect them, you just got to stick with your gut. And if you've got, and not necessarily stick with your gut, but stick with your tools, stick with your trading system. If you've got a sell signal, and this is a sell signal that you take every time, and you take it, and then somebody else posts a chart on the other side, well, so be it. It's good information, and I'm always wanting to know, if I'm bearish, I want to know, why are the bulls bullish? What are the bulls looking at here that's telling them it's continuing to go up? I want to know that information. But I'm not going to allow it to turn me into a weak hand necessarily. So yeah, definitely I am viewing the current action different than Murad. I have a lot of respect for him and his team, but I cannot let that respect get in the way of my own analysis. One other thing to take a look at real quickly. Yeah, I got to blow this up again. Just want to see how the cloud's doing on the daily. That has been definitely a important indicator to me here, as we have been showing good signs of a reversal, strong signs of a reversal, short-term reversal. So I guess I'll just clarify a little bit more that I do think the long-term bottom is in, that we're making new all-time highs, and that I'm going to be buying if we do dip here big, because I do think the bottom is in, and I've thought that for a while now. But I do think that we're due for a short to medium-term correction. And the cloud continues to act quite nicely. We fell below, and now we're staying below. Cloud is getting a little bit interesting here, showing that there is room for another one of these bounces. Notice we bounce and bounce. The cloud is showing that there is room for another one of those guys up to the 10,900 area, which is very good to know, because that's where I'm starting to get really worried. If we do bounce from here above 10,600, I'm going to start to get worried, and the cloud's saying not so fast. And that's what's so fascinating about this thing, is how you can have these little, valleys and peaks and hiccups and stuff that really are very, very, very important. So from here, we could bounce all the way back up to almost 12,000 while still staying below a bearish cloud. Very important to keep that in mind. And I will be logging off here to make sure that everything is good to go with the car situation, but I do want to take a look at ETH. Yeah, it's crazy. I'm at the gym this morning. I go to the gym, I come out, and I start my car, and it's like, it's just totally dead. It's got to be the alternator or the battery is what it sounds like. So I've got my buddy taking a look to see, he's taking the battery out to see if that's what the problem is. And that's why I had to take that phone call, because he's doing me a big favor, and what an asshole I'd be if I just totally dogged him when he goes out his way to help me. Okay, no more of that needed. Let's go ahead and look at this action here. So still very much viewing Ethereum USD as in a bear pennant. I believe it's a pennant if it's a symmetrical triangle, and if it's a flag if it's not symmetrical. That's how I remember it. I might be wrong, and it really just doesn't matter. It's the same thing, same target, same pattern. I don't really care if you call it a pennant or a flag. I think that this one would be our flag. Maybe it could even be a bit of a pennant too. I think that's a flag, because it's not symmetrical. If I'm wrong, let me know. It would be good to know, but really it doesn't matter, because you measure the move the same way. People would view this as an ascending triangle. Some of them I don't, because it's following a down move. When you get a triangle following a trend, I expect continuation, especially if it doesn't retrace, at least 50% of that trend. So here, the target from this guy brings us down to 130, which is right in line with a horizontal. And then if we take a look at the target from this guy, that would take us down to about 100. And I'm wondering where the $80 target came from now. I've been having an $80 target for a while. Maybe I just put that in wrong. Interesting. Maybe it's like that. There we go. Something a little better, a little closer. Sorry about that. You can measure that for yourself. I'm targeting 80. I don't care what this looks like right now. 80 is my target. It has been. I think I'm just kind of overlooking something there. So definitely watching for this guy to break down. When we're long, we want to long the strongest. When we're short, we want to short the weakest. Shorting, if I get a sell signal from BTC, and I'm looking at a similar setup in ETH, I'm going to prefer the setup in ETH, because generally the risk is going to be about the same, but the reward is going to be much greater. The stop losses will be about the same percentage-wise, but how far a weak market can move in a pullback or a correction is a lot more than how much a weak market, a strong market can. And just consider what you've seen out of BTC since it broke through 4,000. The upside was huge. It had similar risk down at the bottom, but it went a lot farther to the upside. So here is also something I like to use as a leading indicator. If we're getting to a point where it's kind of a calm before the storm, and we may be looking for some sort of leading indicator like we saw with the RSI, I also like to look at alts to see what they're doing, and this is actually very important to me. Because what are we seeing is that on Bitcoin, I'm waiting for the local low to get taken out to tell me that the trend line is violated. Let's see if we can draw this a little better. Okay. So wicks below, bounces, bounces. So what I'm looking for on Bitcoin is if this local low gets taken out, I'm going to consider this trend line violated. And I would give it just a little time to see if it's a trap, because sometimes, you know, it's just going to wick below to take everybody's stops out, because this will be a common place for stops. So it comes down very quickly, doesn't spend any time here, and quickly goes back to the upside. So here's where I'll be waiting for this close and seeing A, that I want to close below this trend line, and B, I'd also like to close below this local low here. And if that does happen, then I would potentially do the same thing I did yesterday and just kind of zoom in and see, is there any sort of trend line? Is there anywhere I could look to buy a pullback? When I see action like this, I would wait for some sort of pullback, that type of situation. So that this is very important that we're seeing right here with Ethereum taking out this local low. That makes me wonder, has Bitcoin followed suit? Not yet. That's still on the daily. Bitcoin has not followed suit. Okay, interesting. Let's just go ahead and take a look at the RSI. I'm going to have to log off here momentarily. But let's take a look at the RSI. And just to get an idea for if it also may have been a bit of a leading indicator. And it doesn't look like quite as much. Maybe it was like that. Yeah, maybe that's how it was. Interesting. Because that is a trend line with 3 touch points. It's iffy. And then you get a throwback, but the throwback's like a higher high, so I don't like that. Not as clean of a setup as we're seeing with Bitcoin in terms of the RSI forming a similar pattern and then potentially leading the way. Last thing we're going to look at is ETH BTC. I'm really wanting to see this trend line break down. If it does, there should be a significant reaction to the downside. So we'll be watching for this local, watching for this local low to get taken out and potentially looking at adding to my position. I have significant exposure from up in the 0.025 area, but I'm still very confident that this thing has a long way to go after breaking down 0.025 support. And each time that we have consolidated on a trend line, it has provided a tremendous selling opportunity on the following breakdown. So again, you guys got to decide what you want to do with your money. But for me, this is an area where I'm interested in exposing my money to the short side. And seeing that the RSI came up and resisted 50 on this last move, I really like that. So we'll be definitely paying very close attention to these boundaries that I outlined. Going to go ahead and end screen share. Thank you guys for your patience at the top of the hour. I realized that that was a little bit unprofessional, but there was nothing I could do, and I appreciate that you guys stuck with me and have been chiming in the comments section. I'll do my best to get through them, and if there's any good questions, I will do my best to get to them. If anybody posts some good charts, I'll try my best to share those and give you some credit. I have been getting some really great charts shared from the audience, and I really do do appreciate that. So definitely keep me posted on what you guys are seeing. Let me know if you think if you think I'm crazy from what I'm seeing, if there's something else I need to be aware of that I'm not looking at. I'm very open to looking at any and all sort of perspectives, but I am going to be very, very careful about allowing that to affect my trading strategy. And I do think that that is a very important point, especially for people that spend a lot of time on Twitter and TradingView. It's really, really hard to look at somebody's chart who you really respect and totally disregard it when you're on the other side of it. That is really hard to do. And if you're spending your time listening to people like me, you know, on Twitter or on TradingView or YouTube or whatever, it's very, very, very important that you get to a point where you can take in what other people are telling you and learn from it. And like I was saying yesterday, I've seen how my friend Fibbo Swanee has used Fibonacci so well as of late, and now I'm starting to more incorporate those into my own analysis, and therefore I can move forward and have that be part of my analysis and not have to be worried about him posting a chart that is way out of the realm of anything I was expecting, because now I'm starting to build the most important things that I see that work from other people. That's why I will follow other people. I'm rambling a little bit, but this is an important topic to me. Why I do follow other people and follow their charts is because if one time it works, I don't really care. If 2 times it works, I don't really care. If 5 times it works, okay, well, maybe now this is something that I need to be paying attention to, specifically if it would have kept me out of a bad trade, or it would have kept me into a good trade longer. In any of those sort of situations, I want to know which tools are working the best, and the only way to know is to really follow along. Stick to the ones that you're trading, but don't be afraid to follow along and mentally note how well the others are working. Another good example is log charts. I hated log charts up until this winter, and then I saw how well people like Murad and David Puel used them very near the bottom, and that really changed my perspective. So it's important to understand that you shouldn't be changing your perspective in real time. You got to stick to your guns in real time, but in hindsight, figure out how you can learn. How could have this maybe gone a little bit better? As long as you're thinking on those lines, you will always be improving, you will always be evolving, and if that's the case, you won't let yourself fall stagnant or fall in a rut. The people that fall stagnant or fall in a rut or get too overconfident or egotistical, those are the ones that are in a position to get whacked by the market. So don't let that be you. Stick to your guns, but have the flexibility of learning from the other people who are out there who are so generous with their time and knowledge. So thank you everybody for tuning in. I have been working hard on the BitMEX tutorials. I'll plan on bringing those to you here soon. And other than that, we'll do my best to continue with the daily analysis here sometime in the afternoon. So have a good one, and I will plan on catching up with you guys soon.